The call came on a Tuesday, and my mother didn't bother with hello. "There's been a change to the rehearsal dinner," she said. I was parked outside a commercial job site, eating a gas station sandwich in my truck, wire insulation dust on my knuckles, a healing cut across my right palm from a pull-box edge 2 days before. I said, "What kind of change?" "You won't be coming." The heater ticked. A crew truck went past on the road outside, radio loud for a second and then gone. "I see," I said. Courtney's parents are very prominent people. Her father has developed half the commercial real estate in the county. Her mother chairs 2 hospital foundation boards. These are people who are used to a certain level of, she paused, refinement. I am an electrician. I've been one for 9 years. I run my own shop now. 2 other guys work for me, and last year we pulled in more revenue than my brother makes at his marketing firm downtown. He doesn't know that. I never told him. It didn't seem like the kind of thing you announce. My brother is 3 years older than me. Growing up, he was the golden one. Good grades, the right friends, a kind of easy confidence that made people want to hand him things. My parents talked about him at dinner parties, the way people talk about an investment, with pride and the quiet attention of someone expecting a return. I was the other one. The one who dismantled the garage door motor at 12 years old to understand how it worked and put it back together wrong. The one who took vocational track classes while he took AP everything. The one who went straight into an electrical apprenticeship while he went to college on my parents' money. And a collection of loans I heard about for years afterward as evidence of his sacrifice. I want to be specific about my parents' money because it matters. 4 years of tuition, room and board, a monthly allowance, a used car his junior year, the security deposit on his first apartment after graduation. I never added it up exactly. I didn't have to. The shape of it was clear enough. One of their children was an investment. The other was being sent somewhere practical and out of the way. I got a graduation card with $500 in it. I bought my first set of Klein tools with it. They still work. I didn't mind my choice. I love this work. I love that electricity follows rules, and if you know the rules, you can solve almost anything. A problem with voltage drop tells you exactly where to look. A tripped breaker means something specific. There's no pretending, no managing perceptions, no politics. The circuit either works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, you find out why. What I minded was the way my family talked about it. My mother's voice going careful at parties when someone asked what I did. "Oh, she works with her hands. You know how she is. Always been very independent." A small smile that meant she'd moved on to more interesting topics. "Sweetheart," my mother said, "on that Tuesday, you'd come straight from a job site. Courtney wants her parents to see the family at its best. Having you therein, she caught herself. It would make things harder for her, for your brother." "I own a dress," I said. "I know you do. It's not the dress." "I know it's not." She said it was just the dinner. She said the wedding itself was different, totally different. Of course I'd be at the wedding. She said she knew I understood. I said fine, and I hung up, and I sat in my truck for a while doing nothing. The job site was quiet in the way job sites get around noon. Generators still running, radio on somewhere, but that particular midday lull when everyone's eating. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. I looked at them for a while. I finished the job. I drove home. I made dinner and I didn't say a word to anyone, because the people in my life at the time didn't know the full shape of my family well enough to understand what a rehearsal dinner represented. A rehearsal dinner is, on its face, a small thing. An extra party before the actual party. But being cut from it meant something specific. You don't belong in this picture. You are useful when the pipes burst, but not when we want to look good. We need you available and we need you invisible. I was familiar with that particular math. I had been living inside it for years. 3 days later, they showed up at my house in the morning. I heard the cars before I saw them. My parents' SUV pulling fast around the corner. Then my brother's sedan, then a third car I didn't recognize, dark silver, newer, the kind of car that costs more than it looks. They came up my front walk in a cluster, and I could tell from the way they moved, urgent and compressed at the same time, that this wasn't a visit. My mother was in her good coat. My father had his jaw set. My brother looked pale in a way I hadn't seen, since he'd gotten fired from his first job out of college and called me, of all people, to talk about it at 10 at night. And behind them a man I'd never met. Maybe 65, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, wearing a fleece vest over a button-down like he'd come from something practical and not bothered to change. He stopped at the bottom of my porch steps while everyone else came up. He waited there, which I noticed. "Are you Courtney's father?" I asked. "Hank Deal," he said. "I asked to be here." "Come inside," I said. In my living room, my mother started talking before everyone had found a place to sit. Courtney was hurt. The dinner plans were in shambles. Hank had refused to attend unless I was included, which had created a serious problem. She looked at me like the problem was mine. "I didn't call him," I said. "Courtney told me herself," Hank said from the armchair across from me. He had a directness about him that I recognized. The kind of directness that comes from spending years in situations where straightforwardness is faster than anything else. "My daughter came home 2 nights ago crying. She said her future in-laws had asked her future sister-in-law not to come to the rehearsal dinner because of her job." "That's a simplified," my mother began. "Is there a more accurate version?" Hank asked. Nobody answered. He looked at me. "What kind of electrical work do you do?" "Commercial and industrial, mostly. I run my own shop." "Are you a licensed master electrician?" "Yes." "What's the biggest commercial job you've completed?" I thought for a second. "The Meridian Industrial Complex on Route 9. 3 buildings, full install and controls. We were on site 14 months. Hank set down his coffee mug. He'd been holding it but hadn't drunk from it, and now he put it on the side table with a deliberateness that felt like someone making room to think. He looked at me. "You did that job?" "My crew and I." "I own that complex," he said. "I developed it. For 2 years I've been trying to track down the electrical contractor on that project. My site manager kept the files, but he left the company and—" He stopped. "The panel configuration in Building C. The home run routing. My new consultant called it the cleanest commercial install he'd seen on a project that size." Something moved up the back of my neck. Not embarrassment. The other kind of heat. The kind that comes when someone looks at work you're proud of and names it correctly. "That was us," I said. Hank looked at my mother, then at my father, then at my brother. He looked at each of them in turn, and his expression didn't change, which was somehow worse than if it had. "I started as a journeyman electrician," he said. 1984. Did it for 12 years before I moved into development. Hardest work of my life, best training I've ever had." He looked at my mother directly. "You have someone in your family who did the work on a project I've been proud of for 2 years. And you were going to keep her out of a dinner party because of how she looks when she comes home from a job site." My mother opened her mouth. "I raised Courtney better than to be part of something like that," Hank said, "and I'm sorry she wasn't." If you're watching this and you've ever had someone say the true thing out loud, in a room where the people who needed to hear it were sitting right there, you know what that moment feels like. It doesn't fix anything on its own, but it breaks something open. It makes the air different. And if you want to know what happened next, stay with me. But first, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who's out there. My mother recovered. She always recovers. She has a way of letting a thing land and then rerouting around it so smoothly you almost don't notice. "Now that Hank has had a chance to meet everyone," she said, voice resettled, "there's a separate matter we need to address. The venue is holding the reception deposit. Your brother is dealing with a temporary cash situation, and we need help covering the shortfall before the end of the week." "How much?" I said. It wasn't quite a question. $11,000. Hank looked at the ceiling briefly, just briefly. "No," I said. My mother blinked. "This is his wedding. You uninvited me from the rehearsal dinner because I embarrass you. Now you need $11,000. It's not the same." "I know it's not the same," I said. "That's the point." I got up and went to the kitchen. In the cabinet above the refrigerator, behind a baking pan I never use, I keep a manila folder that I have been adding to for 8 years without quite admitting to myself why. I'd known, somewhere, that this day would come, that there would eventually be a room and a moment, and a need to put the real numbers on the table. I brought it back and set it on the coffee table and opened it. "Spring 2016, I said. "First and last month's rent when you moved to the city, $3,000. I put the page on the table. Fall 2017, your transmission went. You said you'd put the repair on a card and handle it. You called me 2 months later. I paid the remaining balance, $2,200. Another page down. The suit for the interview at Harmon and Associates, $380. You called me on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Stop, my brother said. The layoff in 2020, $500 a month for 5 months, $2,500. I looked at my father. The panel upgrade at the house on Clement Drive. I sourced the materials it cost and I did the labor myself. Market rate for that job was $6,000. I charged you nothing. Another page. The subpanel for the garage addition. Market rate $4,200. Nothing. Page. The outdoor circuit for the deck. $1,800. Market rate. Nothing. My father had stopped looking at me. He was staring at the floor. The time I drove 90 minutes on a Wednesday night to jump your car in a parking structure because you'd let your AAA lapse, I said to my brother. I'm not charging you for that. I'm just telling you it happened, and nobody ever said thank you. I put down the last page. Conservatively, I said, over the last 8 years, I've given or lent this family close to $27,000 in cash and another $8,000 to $10,000 in labor and materials. I didn't send invoices. I didn't keep a running tab out loud. I did it because I thought that was what you did for family. The room was very quiet. Outside, a car went by on the street. My father looked old. He looked like a man who has just seen an accounting he didn't want to see and can't find a reason to dispute. My brother put his face in his hands. I watched him do it and I waited. I had seen him deflect before. I had seen him reframe, redirect, find the angle. He was good at it. He'd been doing it since we were kids. He didn't do it. You're right, he said into his palms, and then he lifted his face and said it again directly at me. You're right. I knew Mom was going to call you. I knew what she was going to say and I didn't stop her, and I've been sick about it for 3 days. He looked like he meant it. He looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping. I'm sorry, that's not an excuse. I'm just sorry. I looked at my brother for a long moment. I thought about all the years I had wanted to hear exactly that. I also knew that an apology said under pressure, with a whole crisis sitting on top of it, is not the same as an apology said in the open air with nothing pushing it. I need some time, I said. I'm not ready to do anything with that yet. He nodded once and didn't push. That was more than I'd expected. Hank stood up. He carried his untouched coffee mug to my kitchen counter without being asked, set it down, and came back. He stopped in front of me. I owe you an apology too, he said. You didn't do anything. I should have asked more questions before this got this far. He took a card from his vest pocket. Plain card, just his name and a number. I meant what I said about the Meridian work. I have 3 development projects in active planning right now. My electrical contractor is retiring in the spring. He held the card out. I'd like to have a conversation. I took the card. He left. My parents followed him out. My mother without saying anything to me, which told me more about whether she'd understood anything than if she'd spoken for an hour. My brother stopped at the door. I'll figure out the deposit, he said. Don't worry about it. I wasn't going to, I said. He left. I stood alone in my living room, with the papers spread across the coffee table, and the sound of cars backing out of my driveway. I gathered the pages slowly, put them back in the folder, put the folder in the cabinet, and made myself another pot of coffee. Then I called my guys and told them I'd be on site early the next morning. I didn't go to the rehearsal dinner. My brother called me twice in the weeks that followed, and both times I listened and said I needed more time, and both times he said okay and hung up without arguing. The second time, he mentioned he'd start seeing a therapist. He sounded different, quieter, less managed, more like himself, actually. The wedding was 6 weeks later. I went. I wore the dress. I scrubbed my hands twice, and there was still a faint line under one thumbnail that wouldn't fully come out, and I went anyway. At the reception, Hank Deal found me at the bar. He stood next to me and told me about the worst job he'd ever done as a journeyman. A commercial renovation where they'd found knob and tube wiring hidden in the walls behind 30-year-old plaster, with a live junction box behind a sealed-up fireplace that had tape on the connections. Electrical tape that had been there so long it had no adhesive left. He told it the way you tell a story that is both funny and still quietly horrifying. Did you have to rewire the whole building? I asked. Everything above the first floor. Took 3 weeks and cost the owner twice what he'd budgeted. Hank shook his head. He was furious. I told him it was rewire the building or eventually burn it down. He said he'd take his chances. He looked at me sideways. He was wrong. I laughed. A real one. I'd like to have that conversation, I said. About the spring projects. I was hoping you'd say that, he said. My mother came over at one point and stood near us with a smile that had nothing behind it, and I smiled back, and we didn't say anything that mattered. I understood that we were not going to resolve things at a wedding reception. Some things move slowly. Some things move so slowly you have to decide whether to wait or to just walk forward without them. I was still working that out. 8 months later, my shop signed a contract with Deal Development, a medical office complex, 2 buildings, with a third optioned pending the first phase. It was the largest contract we had ever signed. I sat at my kitchen table the evening after we got the paperwork back and looked at the number for a long time. My guys and I went out to dinner to celebrate. Somewhere with cloth napkins because we'd earned it. We ordered too much food and argued about the cleanest way to run conduit through a finished ceiling, which is our version of normal conversation. And I sat between them and felt, for the first time in a long time, that I was precisely where I was supposed to be. My brother texted me that night. He'd seen my company name in a county permit application. He'd been looking, apparently, keeping tabs. "Congratulations," he wrote. "Seriously, you deserve it." I held the phone for a while, then I wrote back. "Thank you. How's therapy going?" "Slow," he said. "Good, I think. Slow." "The good ones usually are," I wrote. I set my phone down and finished my dinner. Here is what I know now that I didn't know a year ago, or knew but couldn't hold on to long enough to use. The way your family sees you is not a fact. It feels like one. It has the full weight of a fact when you've grown up inside it, when their version of you is the only version that's ever been in the room. But it is not a fact. It is just their story, built from what they needed you to be, from fear and pride, and the desire to have everything look right from the outside. You can spend your whole life trying to fit into their story, or you can go do the work and let the work speak for itself. My hands are still rough. There's still a line of grease in the creases of my knuckles, most Friday afternoons no matter how long I scrub. I have a scar on my left forearm from a pull-box edge on a winter job 3 years back. I wear steel-toed boots 5 days a week. I know more about 3-phase electrical distribution than most people will ever need to know about anything, and I am good at it, and I built something real with these hands, and nobody gets to make me small for that. Not anymore. I go home to a house I bought and repaired myself, on a street I chose. I make dinner. My guys come over sometimes and we argue and eat too much, and it's loud and easy. My neighbor's kids have decided my electrical panel is the most interesting thing within walking distance. For reasons I cannot explain, and I have given up trying. There is a dog who followed me home last winter and never left, which is the best decision either of us has made. It is my life. I built it the same way I build everything. Part by part, connection by connection, until the whole thing runs. When I look at my hands now, I don't see what my family saw. I see the work. I see 9 years of showing up and figuring it out and not quitting when things got hard. I see every problem I solved and every circuit that runs because I understood it. I am proud of them. I always should have been.